You think soul food from the 1970s was just comfort food for hard times? Think again. These dishes were survival blueprints wrapped in flavor, proof that Black families could create abundance from almost nothing. Each meal carried wisdom, resilience, and the kind of resourcefulness we desperately need today. Here are 30 cheap soul foods from the 1970s we need now more than ever. Neckbone stew transformed discarded cuts into Sunday dinner centerpieces that fed entire families from parts that cost almost nothing. Pork neckbones were slow-simmered for hours with onions, garlic, celery, potatoes, and carrots until the meat fell off the bones into rich broth. The long cooking extracted every bit of flavor and marrow, creating liquid that tasted like patience and love combined. Families served this over rice or with cornbread to soak up every precious drop. In the 1970s, neckbones were rejected by white butchers, making them perfect for Black families stretching tight budgets. Children grew up knowing that Sunday meant neckbone stew, that familiar aroma announcing something special was coming. The dish represented ultimate transformation, turning what others rejected into family tradition and genuine nourishment. This wasn't just food, but cultural preservation, showing how resourcefulness created meals that sustained both body and spirit through generations of hardship and celebration, combined into single pots. Salmon croquettes stretched single cans into crispy patties, feeding 6 people for less than $1, proving that canned goods could become genuinely delicious meals. The salmon was drained, mashed with breadcrumbs, eggs, onions, and seasonings including black pepper, garlic powder, and hot sauce, then shaped into patties. These were fried in hot oil until golden brown and crispy outside while staying moist inside, providing omega-3 fatty acids and protein when fresh fish was completely unreachable. Mothers made them for dinner alongside macaroni and cheese or greens, creating meals that satisfied both hunger and budget constraints simultaneously. Children often requested these specifically, finding comfort in their familiar taste and satisfying crunch. In the 1970s, canned salmon was an affordable pantry staple that didn't require refrigeration, making it practical for families without reliable power. Salmon croquettes represented smart shopping meeting creative cooking, proving that thrift didn't mean sacrifice, just resourcefulness applied to available ingredients. Red beans and rice became Monday tradition, using Sunday's leftover ham bone to create entirely new meals that cost almost nothing but fed families for days. Dried red beans were soaked overnight, then simmered all day with the ham bone, onions, celery, bell peppers, and Creole seasonings until creamy and thick. The long cooking broke down the bean starches, creating natural gravy that coated white rice perfectly while providing complete protein. Mothers could start the pot in the morning and let it simmer while doing laundry, making it perfectly practical for busy days filled with household responsibilities. The dish improved with time, tasting even better the second day when flavors had fully melded together completely. In the 1970s, dried beans cost pennies and lasted months in pantries, making them reliable staples for tight budgets. Red beans and rice showed how yesterday's scraps became today's sustenance, with nothing wasted and everyone fed satisfyingly. Liver and onions delivered iron, B vitamins, and sustained energy through affordable organ meat that mothers understood was essential for growing children. Beef liver was sliced thin, soaked in milk to remove bitterness, then dredged in seasoned flour and fried quickly in hot skillets with butter. Onions were cooked low and slow until caramelized and sweet, creating natural sauce that balanced the liver's mineral intensity perfectly. Served with rice, mashed potatoes, or grits, liver and onions made complete meals that stuck to the ribs through long days. The smell filled entire neighborhoods, announcing dinner time and bringing families to the table with anticipation and hunger. Many children initially resisted the strong flavor, but persistent mothers knew the nutritional value was worth the battle every time. In the 1970s, liver cost less than half what ground beef cost, making it accessible when budgets were impossibly tight. This dish represented mothers' nutritional wisdom combined with determination to keep families healthy. Chitlins with hot sauce represented both celebration food and survival food, the ultimate nose-to-tail eating that wasted nothing from the hog. Pork intestines required hours of meticulous cleaning and preparation before being slowly boiled with onions, garlic, bay leaves, and vinegar until tender enough to eat. The process was labor-intensive, and the smell was unmistakable, filling entire city blocks and announcing that someone was cooking chitlins with pride. Despite the strong aroma, properly prepared chitlins had unique flavor and texture that devotees genuinely loved, especially with hot sauce and vinegar cutting through richness. They were traditionally served during holidays and special occasions, particularly around New Year's, connecting directly to slavery survival strategies. In the 1970s, chitlins remained affordable protein that fed large gatherings without breaking limited budgets for celebration. The preparation was often communal activity, with women gathering to clean and cook together while sharing stories. Chitlins represented cultural continuity, proving that even foods born from oppression could become sources of pride. Cornmeal mush with butter and syrup started countless mornings as hot cereal that cost pennies and filled stomachs before school or work began. Cornmeal was slowly stirred into boiling water with salt until it thickened into smooth porridge, requiring constant stirring to prevent lumps from ruining texture. The finished mush was served hot in bowls with butter melting into pools on top and cane syrup or molasses drizzled over for sweetness that made mornings bearable. This provided sustained energy from whole grain cornmeal that kept children focused through morning classes without hunger distracting them. Leftover mush was poured into pans, chilled until solid, then sliced and fried the next morning for completely different textures. In the 1970s, cornmeal bags cost less than $1 and lasted for weeks of breakfasts, making it economically essential for large families. Cornmeal mush represented resourcefulness meeting practicality, showing how basic ingredients could provide real nourishment that sustained entire generations through hardship. Pickled pig's feet were treasured treats appearing at celebrations and family gatherings whenever someone wanted to honor Southern traditions and ancestral heritage. Fresh pig's feet were thoroughly cleaned, boiled until tender, then packed into jars with hot spiced vinegar, onions, bay leaves, and peppercorns for long preservation. After weeks of curing, the feet developed complex, tangy flavors, while the vinegar turned the meat silky and gelatinous with unique texture. They were eaten cold, straight from jars, with bones pulled clean and every bit of meat and skin consumed without waste. The gelatinous texture was considered especially nourishing, believed to be good for joints and overall health when consumed regularly. In the 1970s, pig's feet cost almost nothing because most Americans avoided them completely, making them perfect for Black families honoring traditional foodways passed down through generations. The preparation required skill and patience, with experienced cooks knowing exactly how long to boil and which spices created perfect balance. Smothered cabbage with smoked turkey became side dishes so good they often overshadowed main courses, transforming humble vegetables into something truly special and crave-worthy. Cabbage was shredded and slowly cooked with smoked turkey wings, onions, garlic, and chicken broth until tender and infused with smoky richness throughout. The long cooking broke down the cabbage's natural sugars, creating sweetness that balanced the smoked meat's saltiness perfectly every time. This dish provided vegetables and protein together, making it nutritionally complete and economically brilliant for tight budgets. Turkey wings were affordable cuts that delivered maximum flavor from minimal meat, with bones adding depth to cooking liquid. In the 1970s, cabbage heads cost pennies and could feed 8 people when cooked with turkey wings as seasoning. The dish improved with reheating, actually tasting better the next day when flavors had fully melded into cohesive whole. Children who claimed to hate vegetables would eat this cabbage without complaint, won over by smoky, savory flavors. Fried chicken gizzards turned organ meat into crispy, chewy bites that cost almost nothing per pound, but satisfied like expensive steaks never could. The gizzards were thoroughly cleaned, boiled until tender, then dredged in seasoned flour mixed with paprika, garlic powder, cayenne, and black pepper, before being deep-fried until golden brown. The result was crunchy outside with firm, meaty texture inside that delivered protein and iron while costing fractions of what chicken breasts cost at any market. Street vendors sold them in paper bags at fish shacks and corner stores throughout Black neighborhoods during weekends and celebrations. Families made them at home for weekend gatherings, serving them with hot sauce and saltine crackers for perfect combination. In the 1970s, gizzards cost less than 50 cents per pound, making them accessible protein for families on impossibly tight budgets. Fried gizzards represented refusal to waste any part of the chicken, transforming organs into genuinely delicious food people actively craved. Butter beans with ham hocks stretched single pieces of smoked pork into meals feeding entire families for 2 days with minimal additional ingredients. Large dried Lima beans were soaked overnight, then simmered for hours with ham hocks, onions, garlic, and black pepper until creamy and rich throughout. The ham hocks released their smoky flavor and gelatinous richness into the cooking liquid, creating thick, savory broth that coated each bean perfectly every time. This combination provided protein from both beans and meat, making it nutritionally complete even though ham hocks were among the cheapest cuts available anywhere. The beans were served over rice or with cornbread, with the potlikker considered precious enough to sip from bowls like soup. In the 1970s, dried beans were pantry staples lasting months and costing less than $1 per pound for family supplies. A single ham hock could flavor an entire pot of beans, making the meat-to-meal ratio incredibly economical for struggling families. Fried pork chops smothered in gravy turned inexpensive bone-in chops into Sunday dinner centerpieces that made families feel like they were eating something truly special and celebratory. The chops were seasoned generously with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and paprika, dredged in flour, then fried in hot oil until golden brown and crispy all over. After removing the chops, the same skillet was used to make gravy from the drippings, flour, and milk, creating rich sauce poured over the meat. The chops were returned to the gravy and simmered until tender, with the sauce soaking into the crispy coating beautifully. Served with rice, mashed potatoes, or grits, this became meals that satisfied on multiple levels at once. In the 1970s, bone-in pork chops were affordable protein, especially when purchased in bulk from local butchers who knew their customers personally and offered deals. Children eagerly anticipated smothered pork chops, knowing they meant something special was happening that deserved celebration. Black-eyed peas with rice appeared on New Year's Day tables without fail, carrying promises of prosperity and good fortune into every household that honored the sacred tradition. The peas were simmered with ham hocks or salt pork until tender, seasoned with onions, garlic, and pepper, then served over white rice for complete protein. This combination wasn't just cultural tradition, but also nutritional brilliance, providing everything bodies needed from simple, affordable ingredients combined thoughtfully. The dish was believed to bring luck because peas represented coins and greens served alongside represented paper money flowing in. Families made huge pots, knowing leftovers meant continued good fortune throughout the year ahead for everyone who ate them. In the 1970s, black-eyed peas cost pennies per pound dried, making this luck-bringing tradition accessible to even the poorest families struggling through hard times. Black-eyed peas with rice represented hope, faith, and belief that following traditions would bring better times ahead, making them psychologically important beyond nutrition. Fatback and greens created the foundation of countless soul food meals, with cured pork fat transforming bitter vegetables into something genuinely crave-worthy and absolutely delicious. Thick slices of fatback were rendered slowly in cast-iron skillets until the fat melted out and the remaining meat crisped into cracklings worth fighting over. Collard, mustard, or turnip greens were added to the rendered fat, along with vinegar, hot sauce, and seasonings, then cooked low and slow for hours until tender. The greens absorbed the pork fat's richness, becoming flavorful while maintaining some of their natural bite and texture throughout cooking. The potlikker that resulted was considered liquid gold, sipped from bowls or soaked up with cornbread hungrily. In the 1970s, fatback was among the cheapest items at any butcher, often costing less than butter per pound for families watching every penny. Fatback and greens represented maximum flavor from minimum investment, proving that fat wasn't the enemy, but rather the key. Fried fish sandwiches on white bread became Friday tradition in Black communities, with whiting or catfish fillets creating meals that cost less than hamburgers but satisfied more deeply. Fresh or frozen fish was seasoned with salt, pepper, and hot sauce, dredged in cornmeal, then fried until crispy and golden in hot oil that made entire kitchens smell amazing. The fillets were placed on soft white bread with hot sauce, pickles, and sometimes thin spreads of mayonnaise, creating sandwiches that were simple but absolutely delicious every time. Fish provided lean protein and omega-3 fatty acids, making these sandwiches nutritious as well as affordable for families watching budgets carefully. In Catholic neighborhoods, Friday fish fries became community events, with churches and families gathering to cook and eat together while strengthening bonds. In the 1970s, whiting was among the cheapest fish available, often costing less per pound than chicken at local markets. Fried fish sandwiches represented community, tradition, and the joy of simple food done right. Hopping John, served at midnight on New Year's Eve, embodied hope and superstition blended with practical economics, as black-eyed peas, rice, and pork came together in tradition-laden celebrations. The peas were cooked with rice, smoked pork, onions, and peppers until everything melded into one unified dish with layers of texture and deep flavor. This wasn't just food, but ritual, with families believing that eating Hopping John at the year's start ensured prosperity throughout coming months ahead. The tradition likely originated with enslaved Africans who combined West African rice cooking techniques with ingredients available on plantations for survival and celebration. In the 1970s, the dish remained affordable because black-eyed peas and rice were among the cheapest staples available in any store. Families made enormous pots, knowing that leftovers meant extended good luck rather than waste that would bring bad fortune. Hopping John represented cultural continuity, African heritage meeting American survival, creating something uniquely Black American that sustained both bodies and spirits. Neckbones and potatoes simmered together became winter comfort food that warmed kitchens and filled bellies when cold weather made hunger feel even more desperate and urgent. Pork neck bones were browned first to develop flavor, then covered with water, potatoes, onions, and seasonings before simmering until meat fell from bones easily. The potatoes absorbed the porky richness, becoming creamy and flavorful while the meat turned silky and tender with hours of patient cooking. This one-pot meal required minimal attention once assembled, making it perfect for busy mothers managing multiple responsibilities throughout long days. The bones released gelatin and marrow into the broth, creating body and richness that made the dish feel more substantial than its simple ingredients suggested it would. In the 1970s, neck bones cost almost nothing per pound, and potatoes were among the cheapest vegetables available year-round in any market. Neck bones and potatoes represented making something from nothing, proving that the cheapest cuts combined with basic vegetables could create genuine comfort. Fried Spam with eggs became breakfast solution when bacon was too expensive and families needed protein to start long days of work and school right. Spam was sliced thick and fried until the edges caramelized and crisped while the center stayed tender, creating textural contrasts that made the processed meat more interesting and actually delicious. Eggs were fried in the same pan, picking up the salty, meaty flavors from the Spam's rendered fat for perfect combination. Together, they created breakfast that provided sustained energy and cost less than 50 cents to feed 4 people every morning. In the 1970s, Spam represented wartime ingenuity that continued helping families stretch food budgets long after rationing ended throughout the country. The canned meat didn't require refrigeration and lasted indefinitely, making it perfect for households with unreliable power or limited storage space available. Fried Spam with eggs represented pragmatism over pretension, showing that feeding your family mattered more than impressing anyone with fancy ingredients or sophisticated cooking techniques. Mustard greens with ham hocks delivered bitter, peppery flavors that balanced the smoky pork perfectly while providing vitamins and minerals essential for health and sustained well-being. The greens were cleaned thoroughly, then cooked low and slow with ham hocks, onions, vinegar, and hot sauce until tender, but still maintaining some texture throughout. The bitterness mellowed during cooking, balanced by the pork's saltiness and the vinegar's tang, creating complex flavors that developed over hours of patient simmering. The potlikker was considered especially valuable, packed with vitamins leached from the greens and rich with pork flavor worth savoring. Families served this with cornbread and hot sauce, with children learning to appreciate the bitter notes that many initially resisted eating. In the 1970s, mustard greens grew easily in southern gardens and could be purchased cheaply at markets when homegrown weren't available for picking. Mustard greens with ham hocks represented southern cooking wisdom, showing how proper preparation made even bitter vegetables into food people actually wanted to eat. Fried chicken wings, before they became trendy and expensive, were the discarded parts of chickens that Black families transformed into crispy, flavorful snacks and satisfying meals. The wings were seasoned simply with salt, pepper, and garlic powder, dredged in flour, then fried until golden and crispy in hot oil or lard that made them absolutely delicious. The skin crisped perfectly while the small amount of meat stayed juicy, creating satisfying bites that disappeared quickly from plates at gatherings. These weren't considered premium food in the 1970s, when most people wanted breasts and thighs instead of bony wings nobody else wanted. That meant wings cost almost nothing per pound, sometimes given away free by butchers trying to clear inventory from coolers. Families made huge batches for weekend gatherings, serving them with hot sauce and white bread for perfect combinations. Fried chicken wings represented finding value in what others overlooked, transforming cheap cuts into genuinely delicious food that eventually became so popular they're now expensive. Cornbread dressing made from scratch became holiday tradition that stretched expensive turkey into meals feeding extended families gathering from across cities and states for celebration. Day-old cornbread was crumbled and mixed with sautéed onions, celery, sage, chicken broth, and eggs, then baked until golden on top and creamy inside with perfect texture. This wasn't stuffing cooked inside the bird, but southern dressing baked separately in pans, allowing better control over texture and flavor throughout. The cornbread absorbed the broth and seasonings, becoming savory and moist with crispy edges that everyone fought over at dinner tables. Families made huge pans because this was as important as the turkey itself, sometimes more important given its cultural significance to gatherings. In the 1970s, cornmeal was cheap enough that making cornbread for dressing didn't stress budgets even during expensive holiday meals celebrated properly. Each family had their own variations, with recipes guarded and passed down through generations of women who took pride in their dressing. Oxtail stew transformed the tail of cattle into fall-off-the-bone tender meat swimming in rich, gelatinous gravy that coated everything perfectly when served over white rice. The oxtails were browned first to develop deep flavor, then slowly braised with onions, carrots, celery, tomatoes, and red wine or broth for hours until the meat became incredibly tender and rich. The bones released collagen and marrow, thickening the sauce naturally and creating richness that couldn't be achieved any other way with cheaper ingredients. This wasn't quick food, but patient food, requiring hours of low heat to transform tough connective tissue into silky texture worth waiting for. Families served this on special occasions despite the humble ingredient because the preparation demanded time and attention that showed love clearly. In the 1970s, oxtails were considered throwaway cuts that butchers sold cheaply, perfect for Black families who understood their potential for transformation into something special. The dish represented culinary alchemy, showing how time, technique, and patience could transform the least desirable cuts. Lima beans with ham and tomatoes created summer dishes that combined fresh vegetables with smoked pork in ways that made even vegetable-hating children clean their plates completely. Fresh or frozen lima beans were simmered with ham pieces, tomatoes, onions, and peppers until the beans were creamy and the tomatoes had broken down into sauce coating everything. The acidity from tomatoes balanced the beans' starchiness, while the ham added smokiness and salt that brought all flavors together into cohesive whole. This one-pot meal required minimal supervision once assembled, making it perfect for hot summer days when standing over stoves felt absolutely unbearable. The dish was nutritious and filling, providing protein, fiber, and vitamins all in one bowl served over rice for complete meals. In the 1970s, Lima beans were garden staples that families grew themselves or purchased frozen in bulk economically at stores. Lima beans with ham and tomatoes represented seasonal cooking and the satisfaction of eating fresh produce prepared simply but deliciously. Pig ears, boiled then fried, transformed another discarded cut into crispy, gelatinous treats that appeared at gatherings and celebrations throughout Black communities nationwide during warm months. The ears were thoroughly cleaned, boiled until tender, then sliced into strips, breaded, and deep-fried until golden and crispy on the outside with satisfying crunch. The texture was unique, with crispy breading giving way to tender cartilage that had a satisfying chew unlike any other food available anywhere. These weren't everyday food, but special treats that showed up at fish fries, family reunions, and summer cookouts where people gathered to celebrate. The ears provided collagen and minerals while costing almost nothing per pound, since most butchers were happy to sell what they couldn't move otherwise to anyone. In the 1970s, pig ears represented nose-to-tail eating decades before it became fashionable in upscale restaurants charging premium prices. The preparation required skill and patience, with experienced cooks knowing exactly how long to boil and at what temperature to fry perfectly. Fried chicken livers with hot sauce delivered iron-rich organ meat in forms that even children would eat, especially when coated in seasoned flour and fried crispy golden brown. The livers were soaked in buttermilk to remove any bitterness, dredged in flour mixed with paprika, garlic powder, and cayenne, then fried quickly in hot oil until perfectly cooked. The result was crispy outside with creamy, almost mousse-like interior that melted in the mouth when cooked properly without overcooking into grainy texture. These provided concentrated nutrition, including iron, B vitamins, and protein in affordable packages costing less than $1 per pound at markets. Families served them as main dishes or snacks, with hot sauce being mandatory for many who loved the spicy, rich combination that made them addictive. In the 1970s, chicken livers were considered poor people's food that wealthier families avoided completely, meaning they stayed affordable and accessible for struggling families. Fried chicken livers represented nutritional wisdom disguised as soul food, proving that the cheapest cuts often delivered the most essential nutrients. Red rice with sausage brought gullah traditions into urban Black kitchens, creating one-pot meals that combined African cooking techniques with American ingredients in uniquely flavorful and satisfying ways. Long grain rice was cooked with smoked sausage, tomatoes, onions, peppers, and spices until the rice absorbed all the liquid and turned deep red throughout. The dish was savory, slightly spicy, and deeply satisfying, with each grain of rice coated in tomato richness and sausage fat for maximum flavor. This wasn't just food, but cultural heritage, connecting coastal African Americans to West African jollof rice through centuries of adaptation and survival across oceans. Families served this at celebrations, church dinners, and regular weeknight meals when rice and sausage were all the budget allowed for feeding everyone. In the 1970s, rice was among the cheapest starches available, and smoked sausage provided maximum flavor from minimal meat for economical cooking. Red rice with sausage represented cultural continuity and African heritage, surviving through food traditions that connected past to present. Ham bone and bean soup transformed the leftover bone from Sunday's ham into entirely new meals that fed families for days with minimal additional ingredients needed for completion. The bone was placed in large pots with dried beans, onions, celery, carrots, and water, then simmered for hours until the beans were creamy and the remaining ham fell off the bone into the soup. The marrow and residual meat flavored the entire pot, creating rich soup that tasted like prosperity despite costing almost nothing to make from leftovers. This represented the ultimate waste-nothing philosophy, ensuring every part of expensive Sunday ham served multiple purposes throughout the week for maximum value. The soup was served with cornbread or crackers, providing complete protein from beans and ham combined in perfect proportions. In the 1970s, dried beans cost pennies and lasted months in pantries, making them reliable staples for families on impossibly tight budgets. Ham bone and bean soup showed how one ingredient could serve families repeatedly when prepared thoughtfully. Fried bologna sandwiches elevated the cheapest lunch meat into something children actually requested, especially when the edges curled up, creating crispy cups filled with mustard and tangy pickles. Thick slices of bologna were scored around the edges and fried in skillets until the center puffed up and the edges crisped and caramelized perfectly. The meat was placed on white bread with yellow mustard and sweet pickle slices, creating sandwiches that were simple but satisfying in ways that transcended their humble ingredients completely. The frying transformed the bologna's texture and intensified its flavor, making it genuinely more delicious than the cold version ever could be. Mothers packed these for school lunches, and children ate them without complaint or embarrassment about their simple nature or low cost. In the 1970s, bologna was among the cheapest proteins available, affordable enough that even struggling families could buy it regularly for quick meals. Fried bologna sandwiches represented treats rather than poverty, showing that simple pleasures didn't require expensive ingredients. Turkey necks and rice turned discarded poultry parts into main dishes that provided protein, created flavorful broth, and satisfied hunger with minimal cost or effort required from cooks. The turkey necks were simmered with onions, celery, and seasonings until the meat became tender enough to fall from the bones easily when pulled gently. The cooking liquid became rich broth that was used to cook rice, infusing every grain with turkey flavor and creating cohesive meals everyone enjoyed. Families served the tender meat over the rice with vegetables on the side, making complete dinners from parts that cost almost nothing at markets. In the 1970s, turkey necks were considered throwaway cuts that butchers were happy to sell cheaply to anyone who wanted them without judgment. A pound of necks could feed a family of 6 when served over rice that absorbed the precious cooking liquid completely. Turkey necks and rice represented practical wisdom about stretching resources, showing that every part of poultry had value when prepared properly. Fried pork skin, also called cracklings, provided crunchy, salty snacks that satisfied cravings while using the pig's skin that would otherwise be completely discarded as useless waste. The skin was cut into strips, boiled briefly, then fried in its own rendered fat until it puffed up and turned crispy golden brown all over. The result was intensely porky, crunchy, and addictively salty, eaten by the handful like chips, but providing protein and fat that kept people satisfied longer. These appeared at gatherings, in paper bags at corner stores, and as homemade snacks when families butchered their own hogs for winter meat. The cracklings were also crumbled over greens, mixed into cornbread batter, or eaten alongside beans for added richness and satisfying texture throughout meals. In the 1970s, pork skin cost nearly nothing since most people threw it away without realizing its potential for transformation into snacks. Fried pork skin represented ultimate resourcefulness, finding value in what literally everyone else considered garbage and transforming it into genuinely delicious food. Caramel cake was the kind of reunion dessert that revealed who in the family had the patience and skill to stand over a hot stove, stirring icing long enough to make it perfect. The cake layers themselves were simple, tender and pale, but the icing was where the magic lived, thick, sweet, and slow cooked until it deepened into a golden brown that tasted like butter warmth and memory. Grandmothers guarded their caramel icing method with pride because it took steady hands and a calm heart to keep the sugar from scorching as it bubbled and darkened in the pot. Once ready, the icing was poured over the stacked layers while still warm, spreading into silky drapes that coated every inch before cooling into a soft caramel shell. At reunions, the caramel cake always looked humble on the outside, but the moment it was sliced, people hurried forward for a piece because they knew the flavor inside carried generations of practice. The icing melted on the tongue with a sweetness that felt deep and comforting, and the cake beneath was tender enough to soak up every drop. Caramel cake tasted like real labor poured into something meant to be shared and celebrated. It reminded everyone that the best desserts came from time, attention, and love stirred slowly over a warm stove. Corncob jelly was one of those miracles that made people smile at their own cleverness. When the corn was shucked and the cobs left behind, no one dared to throw them out. Those bare cobs went into a big pot of water, boiled until the water turned golden and sweet-smelling. Sugar and a little lemon juice got added next, then everything was strained until the liquid gleamed like honey. The result was a jelly that tasted faintly of corn, syrupy and light, the perfect spread for biscuits or toast. People used it when fruit was scarce, and it carried a quiet pride that came from turning scraps into sweetness. Grandparents remembered it from their childhood, when waste was not an option and imagination ruled the kitchen. Corncob jelly was proof that flavor could be coaxed out of what others might ignore. It was soft, shining, and made with patience. Those who tasted it never forgot that feeling of abundance born from scarcity. Each spoonful told the story of hands that worked hard, saved everything, and still found time to make something beautiful. Maypop fruit mash turned the wild passion fruit of the American South into a rare dessert filled with tropical fragrance. Known as Maypop for the sound of its hollow fruit when stepped on, this native vine produced aromatic yellow fruits that ripened in late summer. Enslaved foragers gathered the fruit, split the rinds, and scooped the bright pulp into a bowl with a drizzle of molasses or honey when such sweeteners were at hand. The result was a naturally tangy treat that needed no cooking and provided a burst of vitamins. The flavor, a cross between citrus and melon, delighted anyone lucky enough to taste it. Even after emancipation, rural families prized maypops for jellies and pies, and the plant remains a cherished wild edible across the Southeast. Maypop fruit mash preserves a memory of fleeting seasonal abundance and the creativity that transformed wild gifts into moments of celebration, proving that even in the harshest circumstances, people found ways to enjoy the bright, unique flavors offered freely by the natural world. Souse, also known as head cheese, was a dish made from pig scraps that turned thrift into sustenance. The meat from a pig's head, including tongue and cheeks, was simmered, chopped, and set in a broth with vinegar and spices. Once cooled, it formed a terrine-like dish that could be sliced and served cold, usually with bread. Families valued it because it made use of parts of the hog that others ignored, ensuring that nothing edible was wasted. Souse carried tangy flavors from the vinegar and a dense texture that was filling and practical. Though not everyone loved it, those who grew up with it remembered it as a staple on the table during lean times. It represented survival and ingenuity, transforming scraps into something lasting. In households where every bite mattered, Souse stood as proof that determination and resourcefulness could make even the most overlooked cuts into meaningful food. Sorrel hibiscus tea brought a ruby glow to church socials and summer porch gatherings. Its tart floral flavor, steeped from dried hibiscus petals and sweetened with cane sugar, reflected Caribbean influences that African American families carried north and west during migrations. Grandmothers brewed the tea in large enamel pots, sometimes adding a hint of ginger or a squeeze of lime to brighten the taste. Children watched the deep red liquid swirl into pitchers, knowing it signaled a special occasion. Served chilled over cracked ice in simple glasses, sorrel tea cooled guests during humid evenings while hymns and laughter filled the air. The drink offered more than refreshment. It was a quiet connection to ancestors and homelands across the sea. Over time, soda and store-bought beverages replaced the careful steeping of petals and spices, and the vibrant tradition faded in many communities. Those who still make it treasure the deep crimson reminder of resilience and shared history that once colored every celebration. Shepherd's pie with mashed sweet potatoes was a clever twist on an old classic that fit the budget of Black families in the 1960s. Instead of pricey white potatoes, sweet potatoes from the garden were boiled, mashed, and spread on top of a filling made from scraps of meat and vegetables. My grandmother would use whatever was left, bits of beef, chicken, or even pork, chopped small and cooked with onions, carrots, or peas until it formed a savory base. The sweet potato topping baked into a golden layer that balanced the salty meat with a touch of natural sweetness. It was hearty enough to fill everyone, but cheap enough to make even during lean weeks. Sweet potatoes were plentiful in many southern gardens, and they stretched farther than most vegetables because they were filling and rich in flavor. Shepherd's pie with mashed sweet potatoes was more than just food. It was a statement of ingenuity. Families made do with what they had and still put something warm and comforting on the table. That golden crust represented thrift and care, carrying both survival and love in every spoonful. Coconut cake was the tall, white winter bright dessert covered in soft flakes that clung to the frosting like new fallen snow, making it one of the most beautiful desserts on any reunion table. The cake layers baked into soft, tender rounds that held moisture well, especially when brushed lightly with sweet coconut milk or simple syrup to deepen the flavor. The frosting was smooth and fluffy, often made from cooked icing or whipped cream cheese depending on the family recipe, and once spread across the cake, it formed the perfect base for the final snowy coating. Handfuls of coconut were pressed gently against the sides, falling lightly across the top until the cake looked like something crafted for celebration. Its flavor was light sweet and refreshing, offering a cool softness that balanced the heavier, richer desserts around it. Coconut cake tasted like reunions. Church gatherings and holidays rolled into one dessert as children reached for it, first drawn to the snowy look while adults reached for it last, wanting to savor the gentle sweetness. Sweet potato biscuits were the soft-spoken stars of every humble table. Made from mashed sweet potatoes, flour, and a touch of lard, they carried the sweetness of the earth and the strength of those who planted it. Each biscuit came out of the oven golden, warm, and smelling like home. Sweet potatoes were a gift crop, tough enough to thrive when others failed, and they carried families through hard seasons. These biscuits stretched what little was available into something that felt like luxury. They were eaten for breakfast with syrup or alongside greens and stew at supper. No matter when, they always brought a comfort that money could not buy. The dough was often mixed by hand, shaped on worn counters, and baked in cast iron. The rhythm of making them passed from mother to daughter like a blessing. Sweet potato biscuits were proof that sweetness could come from struggle, that even the humblest harvest could rise high in the oven and on the heart. They fed not just the body but the spirit, turning hardship into hope with every tender bite. Roasted sassafras roots provided a fragrant tea with a naturally sweet, slightly spicy flavor that refreshed the spirit and offered mild stimulation. Enslaved gatherers carefully dug the young roots of the sassafras tree, washed them, and roasted them over gentle heat to draw out their aromatic oils. When steeped in hot water, the roasted roots released a deep reddish brew with notes of vanilla and citrus. This tea was enjoyed both for its taste and for traditional medicinal uses, reflecting a blend of African and indigenous knowledge about native plants. After emancipation, sassafras tea became a beloved Southern beverage, eventually serving as the base flavor for the first root beers. The practice demonstrates how a simple foraged root shaped a lasting American flavor that extends far beyond its humble beginnings. Roasted sassafras roots show how understanding the forest's offerings allowed communities to create drinks of comfort and cultural significance from ingredients freely given by the land itself. Homemade chow-chow relish added brightness and crunch to plates crowded with greens, beans, and smoked meats. Cabbage, onions, peppers, and green tomatoes were chopped fine and simmered with vinegar, mustard seed, and sugar until they formed a tangy condiment that could last through winter. Every household had a slightly different recipe, some sweeter, some hotter, each a reflection of the cook's own hand. The relish brought sharp contrast to rich dishes like pork shoulder or pinto beans, cutting through heaviness with a lively bite. In late summer, neighbors gathered to chop vegetables together, sharing stories as big pots bubbled on outdoor fires. Jars lined pantry shelves in rows of glowing gold and green, a promise of flavor when fresh produce was long gone. Over time, store-bought pickles and bottled sauces replaced the careful preparation of chow-chow, but its memory endures wherever families recall the sound of knives on wooden boards and the reward of a bright spoonful alongside a hearty meal. Chicken wing stew was one of those meals that would surprise modern ears, since wings were once the cheapest part of the bird. My grandmother bought them in bulk when she could, piling them into pots with onions, celery, and carrots. Slowly simmered, the wings gave up their fat and flavor, turning thin broth into rich gravy. She thickened it with flour or cornstarch, serving it hot over rice or bread to stretch it even further. It was messy eating, but no one complained because the taste was so comforting. Wings may be prized today, but in the 1960s they were scraps, turned into nourishment by clever hands. She said every part of the bird had value if you treated it with respect. Chicken wing stew carried the spirit of thrift, transforming what others dismissed into something that filled the house with warmth. It was proof that good cooking did not depend on wealth, only patience and care. Which soul food would you bring back to your kitchen? Drop it in the comments below and tell us why it matters. Hit that like button if these recipes spoke to your soul, and subscribe so we can keep honoring the wisdom our grandparents cooked into every single meal.